Imagine standing outside a familiar door, one you once entered without question, your hand raised to knock, but you already know no one will answer, not because they aren't home, but because they've chosen not to hear you anymore. That's what it feels like when your own children stop seeing you, not in anger, not in outrage, but in quiet disregard, like a photograph that's been turned to face the wall. It didn't happen all at once. Maybe it started with a delayed reply, a birthday forgotten, a holiday skipped, and then, one day you realize they no longer ask, no longer include, no longer reach. And worse than the silence is the ache of pretending it doesn't hurt, of making excuses for them, of whispering to yourself, they're just busy. Life is full. But some part of you knows you are no longer part of that fullness. I remember a woman named Thao. She used to send her daughter a message every Sunday. Nothing grand, just hope your week went okay. After the fourth message without a reply, she stopped. But it wasn't anger that made her stop. It was dignity. I needed to know if I was still knocking on a door that had been locked from the inside. And maybe you know that feeling too, not of being rejected, but of being quietly erased. The pain of that erasure isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It doesn't throw things. It sits in a chair no one uses anymore. It listens for footsteps that don't return. It keeps dinner warm, just in case. Try this. Closed door meditation. Sit in front of a closed door in your home. Place one hand gently on your lap. Breathe and whisper to yourself, I release the waiting. You are not forgotten. You are not disposable. You are simply standing in a season where you must learn to turn inward when no one opens outward, because the first step to reclaiming yourself is no longer knocking. It is stepping back, quietly, gently, with grace. And that is where we begin, not in their reply, but in your decision to return home to yourself. There is a kind of waiting that doesn't sit on clocks. It sits in the body, in the hands that refresh a phone screen, in the breath held when the doorbell rings and it's not them, in the quiet stretch between dinner and dusk when you hoped they might call, but didn't. At first, it feels like patience, like love, extended with grace. But over time, it begins to feel like erosion, like something slowly being taken from you in pieces too small to name. You keep telling yourself, they're busy, they'll come around. But what if they don't? What if the silence you're sitting in isn't a pause, but a pattern? I met a man once, Bin. He hadn't heard from his son in over 6 months. He told me, I still make his favorite coffee when I wake up. I pour 2 cups, out of habit, out of hope. That kind of waiting, it becomes its own ritual, a way of surviving absence by pretending it's only temporary. But the truth, your body knows, your spirit knows, that what hurts most is not the silence itself, but the meaning we give it. And here's the gentle truth you may not want to hear. Waiting is not always love. Sometimes it is self-abandonment. Try this. Unsent Letter Ceremony. Write them a letter. Say what you've held in, all of it, but do not send it. Fold it. Place it in a drawer or burn it. Let your voice exist, even if they never hear it. This ritual is not for them. It's for the part of you that's tired of being voiceless, because silence is heavy. But silence you choose can become sanctuary, a space to breathe without the weight of expectation. You are allowed to want them, to miss them, to long for the sound of your name on their tongue again, but you are not required to keep sacrificing your peace for a moment that may never come. Let this be the day you stop waiting as a parent and start living as a person, still here, still whole. Even in the quiet, guilt wears many costumes. Sometimes it shows up as love, other times as duty, most often as silence. We tell ourselves, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I wasn't the parent they needed. Maybe this distance is the price I pay for the mistakes I made. And just like that, guilt wraps itself around us like a second skin, soft, familiar, but quietly suffocating. You may have carried it for years, the way you raised your voice once, the time you said no when they wanted yes, the way you worked long hours or gave too much or didn't give enough. But guilt is clever. It feeds on memory but forgets context. It makes you kneel for things you've already wept over. I remember Lan, a grandmother who helped raise all three of her daughter's children, every weekend, every summer, every emergency. But when she finally said no, when her back couldn't carry them anymore, her daughter called her selfish. And in that word, Lily folded in on herself, not from truth, but from the wound of believing that saying no meant saying goodbye to being loved. That's what guilt does. It blurs the line between love and obligation. It convinces you that your boundaries are betrayals, that your pain is a debt unpaid. But here's the truth that grief uncovers. You can love deeply and still deserve to rest. Try this guilt-releasing ritual. Light a small candle. Write one sentence that starts with, "I forgive myself for," even if you don't fully believe it yet. Even if your hand shakes, say it aloud. Then blow out the flame. Let the guilt go with the smoke, just for today. Because guilt is not proof of love. It's proof of your humanity, and you cannot carry everyone forever if it means disappearing yourself in the process. Love is generous, but it is not a sentence. And you are still allowed to be whole without apologizing for needing to breathe. Let this be the moment you stop paying penance for doing the best you could with what you had. And from that small unburdening, a different kind of strength begins. The kind that doesn't ask, but knows. I am still worthy of love, even if they can't see it yet. There comes a point when silence is no longer sadness, but strategy. When saying no isn't rebellion, but a return to air. You don't reach that place quickly. It happens after years of bending, of picking up every call, of saying yes when your bones whispered otherwise. It happens after you've kept the grandkids, even when your knees ached. After you've lent money you knew wouldn't come back. After you sat through another dinner where your presence was convenient, but never cherished. Until one day you realize that love without boundaries isn't devotion, it's disappearance. I remember Fhuang. She was 69 when she told her son for the first time, "No, I can't help this week, I'm resting." She expected anger, instead she got silence. And in that silence she heard something new, not punishment, but space. "It was like I finally took off shoes I didn't know were too small," she said. Boundaries, when spoken softly, are not walls. They're doorways with thresholds. Places where love must knock, not barge through. Science tells us that autonomy improves emotional resilience. But Whisper knows this, that dignity begins at the edge of your no. Try this. The no that protects. Next time they ask, pause. Place a hand on your chest. Ask, is this coming from guilt or from choice? If it's guilt, say no, not with harshness, but with grace. You owe them your love, not your exhaustion. They may protest, they may fall silent, but your breath will come easier. Your spine will sit taller, and slowly they will begin to notice that your presence is no longer guaranteed, that it must be cherished, not assumed. Because respect doesn't grow from what's always available. It grows from what carries the quiet power to walk away. And you are not an obligation. You are a person still learning how to take up space without apology. And from that place of strength, you begin to see something new, a life that no longer waits for anyone's permission to feel full. For so long, you shaped your days around their presence, meals cooked just in case, phones charged overnight in hope, moments of joy muted because they weren't there to share them. But absence, when held gently, can become space. not empty, but open. That's what happens when you stop building your world around someone who's no longer trying to be part of it. At first, it feels like betrayal, like closing the door on a room full of framed memories. But then, one day, you wake up and do something different. You go for a walk because the light is soft. You plant something just for yourself. You laugh and don't feel guilty for it. That's how life returns, not in grand gestures, but in the small shift from waiting for them to welcoming yourself. I met a man named Kian. His daughter hadn't visited in over a year. One morning, he made tea for one, lit incense for his wife, and sat in the garden, alone. I used to feel sorry for myself, he said. Now I just feel present. He didn't stop loving her. He simply stopped handing her the keys to his happiness. Try this. Morning mirror presence. Each morning, stand before a mirror, look into your own eyes. No fixing, no judging, just witness. Then say, I am here, I am enough, just as I am today. It may feel strange, but over time you'll start recognizing the person you spent years ignoring in favor of others. There's a version of you that's been waiting beneath all the roles, not just parent, but person, breathing, becoming. And as you water this life, this one that's yours alone, something grows, a rootedness that doesn't shake when others drift away. You are still worthy of joy, even if they never return, especially if they don't, because this life, the one that waited, was never theirs to give. It's always been yours to reclaim. There was once a chair that everyone used. It sat in the corner by the window, familiar, quiet, always there. At first it was beloved, held stories, cups of tea, the weight of small bodies curled up in sleep. But over the years, people stopped noticing it, walked past it, took it for granted. And one day, when it creaked from age, no one missed it. That chair, in some way, was you. Not because you were weak, but because you were always available, always saying yes, always making space for others, even when you had none left for yourself. But here's what they didn't see. You were never broken. You were simply waiting to be restored, not by them, but by your own hands. One day you moved that chair out of the corner into the sunlight, dusted it off, placed a flower on its seat, and sat in it for yourself. That's what dignity becomes, not loud, not demanding, but still, rooted, unapologetically visible. Try this quiet chair ritual. Find a chair in your home you've long ignored, place it somewhere new, sit in it not to wait for anyone, just to breathe, to feel that you still take up space in this world, and that space is sacred, because you are not a relic, you are not a ghost in someone else's life. You are here, alive, becoming again. And if they never return, if they never notice the chair has moved, you will still be seated, still steady, still shining in the soft light of your own presence. This is not revenge. It is reclamation. This is not punishment. It is peace. The chair did not ask to be seen again. It simply stood, and in time those who needed to notice did. But even if they don't, you've already returned to the only place you were ever meant to be, yourself.